Hi, I'm Inday Espina-Varona. I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, and I'm a bookworm. Today I'm going to show you my shelves, plural. Books are very important to me. It's like air to me. Books make life richer, teach me a lot of things, put me into new worlds that I would never discover. But books are a way to learn about peoples all over across the world and peoples who lived before our time and to learn from them so that we may enrich our lives today.
Why do you love reading?
All my friends know I'm a bookworm. I'm never without a book. When I read, it's not just about the things I need for work, it's all kinds of stuff. Since I was a child, I always knew that books could transport me into another place. I was always a daydreamer as a kid. I read Little Women, for example. I totally identified with Draw. When we were kids, our father was a journalist and loved books, and my mother was a doctor and also loved books, gave us, but they were thick magazines with photos of Bible stories. And we would spend all our time making little theater, particularly the bloodier, the more we enjoyed it. I grew up in a house where the living room, the dining room, and every bedroom had books. I come from a family that reads. It's always more practical for us to buy hard books. It goes around the family. I was late going into digital books. Eventually, I succumbed simply because I couldn't wait. And the best example of that was the Game of Thrones series, way before. I live here. These books have been carted from house to house. I've been pretty mobile. I used to have books in any office that I would have. And some books I give away. I used to be part owner of a bookshop called Bound. We wanted to buy cheap books, but we would also unload our book, either new or pre-loved. Most of it was pre-loved.
What books do you always come back to?
I think every 2 years, I go back to Little Women. In here, they're very young women facing difficult lives and yet doing it, forging on with grace. It's just something I think that every young woman will probably need to navigate the difficulty and the challenges of life. The other one is To Kill a Mockingbird. And I think it's something that, not just a favorite, but a guidepost in my life. The first line is going to be a paraphrase because it says, courage is not a man with a gun in his hands. It's knowing you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway, and you finish it through, no matter what. When we think of our country, I think the part of the problem of our country is we rebel, we rise in rebellion from time and again. We forget about the things that still need fixing. We rail about corruption, we rail about abuse, we rail about everything. When the times call for us to act, we don't. The other one is Dekada 70. And then the entire catalog of Morris West, I do have in Bacolod. Leon Uris, his entire catalog. When I was going to be 60, I was going to go to Israel. I had long dreamed of it because I was very young when I read Leon Uris's series of books on the Jews. So there was Exodus. And then 4 days before I was going to leave, the current war happened. And so I never got there. But there's another book, and it's a Morris West book, The Shoes of the Fisherman. One of the cardinals, it is in the Curia, one very powerful cardinal called Cardinal Leon, and another cardinal were talking. If you had to live your life again, what would you like to be? Said that if he had to live his life again, he would prefer to be an ordinary priest who had just enough theology to say mass and give confession, but enough spirit, or enough heart, so that he could understand what made man weep into their beds at night. And when you read that, it's the contrast there of a very, very prince of the church who realized that in all his power, that he had lost the most important things in faith. And it was that to succor those who need most in life.
What books would you have wanted to write?
have all of Gina Apostol's book. The thing about Gina is she can write about the most heavy of topics, history. And we talk about history, it's like really well researched. And then she makes you laugh because you see the irony. The gun dealer's daughter was about strange activists and all that stuff. Also very funny. And when I read it and I said, is that me? And then, you see yourself. I think Dekada 70, it talks about activism. It's not pedantic. It shows you struggle, but it doesn't bonk you on the head. It shows you pain. And sometimes with Luwalhati, you laugh and cry at the same time. Her genius was in making us step into the shoes of other people so that we understand better than any manifesto can teach us about certain times. If you want to understand the history of Chinese Filipinos, there's no more beautiful book than Banyaga. There's music in his words. My hope is that when I get to finish my book of essays, some of them will have the kind of music that moved me the way Charleston Owens did. Anyone should read today if you care about this country. It's Some People Need Killing. Pat Evangelista wrote a masterpiece there. It's the highest level of vetting of facts and everything. Isang daon, 100 years of solitude, in Filipino. So hopefully it can get more people reading, Very, very excited about these things. Anything that can make more people read. And I wish that at the time of revisionism, when survey after survey shows that young people don't know much about history, somewhere along the way, education put aside stories and focus on growth learning, dates, people. If Ambeth Ocampo's books can be the basis for education, I think it will really help younger people. John Didion, it's slouching towards Bethlehem. It's a collection of published stories, but I love her lyricism. I love also her way of being sardonic. And I'm in the process of writing a book, and I resisted writing a book for the longest time because I don't want a book that just collates my stories, no matter how good those stories are. Because I want a book that shows me at 60 looking back at what I covered 30 or 40. The stories that stand the test of time are the stories that go beyond the headline. Ultimately, these are stories about people. So much of the stories I've written are about conflict. I have a lot of collections of war reportage and conflict reportage, and I read through it because really, wars may be in specific times and have different techniques and different strategies, but wars are fought by people, and it's very, very important to see the stream that unites peoples. My real dream is to write literary travelogues. When I read Trinity, also by Leon Uris, I actually imagined myself as an IRA. It's not just imagining world, trying to jump through whatever cosmic space to get into that other world. P.K. Iyer and then Colin Tobron, they're great writing about different places by lieu of people and shaping the contradictions of the world in a way that makes us say, aha, I'm a little like that too.
Which book characters would you like to have dinner with?
Ang tawag sa akin ng mga kapatid ko, anak ni Genghis. He changed the world. He really did. And again, he was such a person of contradictions, and I love it. If you're going to have a conversation, and you might as well learn about worlds, and there's no more fantastic world, I think, than the world at the time of Genghis Khan. That's when the world opened up.
Which book would you save in case of a fire?
If you're going to be reading science, like Bill Bryson is a genius because he can actually write out history and science, and you want to bring something that's gonna make you survive the dark days, so.
What are your most abused books?
It's Trinity, most abused book. It's such a convoluted war na kailangan mo basahin na basahin. So, hindi ko alam po, escapismo ba ang gusto ko o paglawak ba ng kaalaman? I'm not sure. Part of it is, I think, And if we're going to travel anyway, what use is travel if we don't come back having learned new things about life? So.
What was your most recent book purchase?
So one half are collection of books from Joel Salud. The other one is an ebook, Shogun. And this one is, it's so funny. It's fun. I love detective stories, but it's very humorous. He's just an author who makes you feel he could be my next door neighbor.
What are your top 5 books for people who want to read like you?
John Le Carre is another of my favorite authors. It's the kind of espionage stories that, again, makes you understand life. The greatness in his books lies in the way he plumbs the motivations of people and then shows us that the saints can have a lot of black in them and the villains have a lot of us in them. The book, but it's still by Jared Diamond. Again, I like science and history to know how to do an interview. This is one of the best books there. Actually, it shows you the interview. Si Joey de los Reyes, one of my favorite. He writes Filipino. Again, he will make you laugh, but he will also bring you up, making you realize so many things that you hadn't thought about. And then, Karima Pulatan. Just for the language, just for the way she manages to flesh out people.
Can you share any tips on how to build your own bookshelf?
Go out and buy book. You find out what interests you. First, you go to your school libraries, and then you go to your city libraries, if your city has a library. And then you go to all the second-hand bookshops that you can find. Browse through it and read it. And I know that people say, how do you build a library? Just read. If all you want to read at the moment is Mills and Boons, do people even read Mills and Boons yet? Or Harlequin or Wattpad or whatever? Go ahead, as long as you read.
Do you have any tips for young writers and readers?
If there's anything books have taught me to be open-minded, it's to be willing to follow a story, regardless of what my original position is. And I think that's really helped me with my journalism because I always say we follow the story. As a writer, as a journalist, the best gift I can give that cause is to come up with a story that is so well researched and fair and well thought out and giving space for different sides to talk. I think people should never be afraid of reading the uncomfortable, of reading opposite ideas, of reading things that could challenge the solid ground where we stand in. I think reading strange things and things that make you review your beliefs are the best way for us to grow. There is no such thing as over-reading. There is no such thing as over-research. There is no such thing as over-education. Just to find out why, just to find out how, and just to find out if you're right or wrong is enough reason to go on reading.
Thank you for sharing your shelf. Do you have any messages?
Sana ang Pilipinas, ang Pilipino ay magkaroon ng mas magandang reading habits. Nababahala ko sa mga surveys na nagpapakita na pababa yata yung reading comprehension natin. Maraming dahilan dyan. Una, napakamahal ng mga libro. It is my hope that one day that people who read books are able to work together to put up libraries in their communities